Hey there, welcome to Business Breakthroughs. I'm your host, Neal DiPentino. We've got a great guest for you today. I think you're going to really enjoy him. He is an author, a motivational speaker, a business coach with 25 years experience in growing companies worldwide. From Atlantic Beach, Florida, welcome CEO and founder of HAXAKAIN Group, the HAXAKAIN Group, Hank Groff. Thanks for being on the show today, buddy.
Thank you, Neal. Appreciate you inviting me.
Hey, absolutely. Hey, I got through that pretty well. We talked about, we've been joking around now for about the last 15, 20 minutes. I think we almost forgot we had a podcast today.
We did.
Well, I think this is going to be a really great show. You are an awesome person. I've read a lot about you on your LinkedIn profile, learned a little bit about you as we were chatting here this afternoon. And before we get into the business part of what you do, what I'd like you to do is just kind of tell our audience who Hank is.
Sure. I appreciate you inviting me to do that. Yeah, so I grew up in Philadelphia area, Delaware. If you're a Joe Biden fan, you might love that. I actually met Joe Biden about 10th grade, Neal. That's a funny story. I served in the U.S. Navy from 84 to 90 during the Gulf War. Was proud to serve during that time period. And during that time, you'll get a little kick out of this story, Neal. I was Mr. Jacksonville bodybuilding champion. So I'm sitting here like lifting weights and on the base. And it was just a crazy story. I won't go into too much detail. And so, yeah, I've had some great, crazy experiences as a young man, competitive bodybuilder, competitive powerlifter for the U.S. Navy. And when I got out, I didn't know what I was going to do. So somebody said, you're really bad at being an electronic technician. I really sucked at being an ET in the Navy. So they said, maybe you should go in sales. And part of that is just my upbringing. My father and mother were incredible salespeople. And I decided to go in sales. I went into sales starting in 1990. I've been in sales leadership, sales training, then evolved into business development. And that's where I'm at today.
Well, fantastic. I can tell you've been a bodybuilder. You are a bodybuilder. You got the shoulders, you got the neck.
I got the
yeah. So you got
not quite what it looked like, but in the good old days, it was there.
Well, Arnold's got nothing on you, buddy. You look good. So let's talk a little bit before we get into more about your business coaching and some of the other things that you've done. You've been, again, we're going to talk a little bit about your speaking career. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the books that you've written. But before we get into all that stuff, I'd really like to understand where the name HAXAKAIN came from. Can you explain that a little bit?
It's a great question. Yeah. So it's actually, we'll talk about it in a little bit in the book. But it's a great story. I was a young 21-year-old and sitting around one day and realized I better get my life together. And so I'm going to find the right woman for myself, and started attending a church where I met this. The funny little story was that I met this young lady. She came up to me when the pastor of the church announced that this guy, Hank Groff, who had just won Mr. Jacksonville, was now attending their church. Well, this cute brunette walks up with a young teenager in tow and said, "Hey, I want you to meet my little brother who wants to get into competitive bodybuilding. We just heard you on Mr. Jacksonville." Of course, I didn't hear anything she said because I'm staring at her and she was beautiful and I'm falling in love with this girl already. Needless to say, it was a funny story, Neal, because what happened is I found out that later, after about 6 months, she kept saying to herself, "I know Hank, I like Hank, he's a friend, but how do I know him? Why do I seem to know him?" Come to find out that it was when I first got to Jacksonville in the Navy, a gentleman by the name of Armin Rapp, weird name, Armin Rapp, he was going to a Bible study, and every week he would lift up this young guy, this crazy young guy named Hank. He said, "Man, we need to pray for this guy. He's the craziest guy in the world, but I think God loves him, and he's got a plan for him." Well, week after week, they were praying for this guy, and there was a bunch of people in this group. This one young lady who was broken up from her, separated from her husband, and finally divorced from her husband, and pregnant, was in this Bible study praying for this guy named Hank, week after week, month after month. And finally, she ended up leaving that church and going to another church. And she calls me one day, back to this brunette that I met. And she says, "You're not going to believe this. I know who you are." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "I was at another church, and 2 years ago, I was praying for this guy named Hank in a Bible study. That was the girl who had been praying for me. And she ended up going to my church, meeting me, and realized I had been praying for this guy for a year. Didn't even know who it was."
Wow.
That woman's name is AIXA, and you say it Isa, AIXA. My name is HANK, Hank. If you put the two words together, it makes HAXAKAIN.
I love it. Fantastic story. And you guys are like living the life now, huh?
Thank God now that the 4 kids are out of the house.
Oh, wow. I completely understand that. Let me tell you, we can go on hours about that one.
We've been married. I've been blessed to be married to the most beautiful woman. I call her my Cuban queen. She was born and they fled communism in 1967 when she was 3 years old. As I said, I met her at church. Family grew up in a very strong Christian family. I met this beautiful young girl, and March we will be married 34 years.
Fantastic. Congratulations. Congratulations on that. And also thank you for your service. Being
Absolutely.
So that's wonderful.
And you too. I know you
Thank
served.
you.
Excellent.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little business if we can. So you are
Absolutely.
a business coach. You've got some
Yes, sir.
pretty incredible accounts. Tell us a little bit about that business.
Yeah, Neal. So it's interesting. I mentioned earlier that I wasn't even sure if I knew sales, but it was in the blood. I found out that I was quite good at it when in 1991, I began to sell commercial fitness equipment, not knowing what I was really doing. Created the first CRM, I call it. You've heard of HubSpot, right? Salesforce. Well, I called it the notebook. And I had a notebook with plastic sheeting in it where I put sheets of paper, and I created the first X for a call, triangle for a visit, this one, and this one, and this one, and all the stages until I closed the deal. And I ended up becoming quite an accomplished salesman in commercial fitness, and being a weightlifter. Of course, I knew about equipment. A couple years later, fast forward, I got into alarm sales, security sales with a company called ADT. Everybody's heard of ADT Security. And I walked in the door desperate for a job one day, and this woman said, "Sit down." It's in the book, and I'll talk about it in a minute. But funny story is I walked in, which typically was a 3-week to 4-week interview process. The guy walks in and says, "I got 2 questions for you." And I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "Have you ever sold?" I said, "Since I've been 6 years old." He says, "Do you do drugs?" I said, "Not at this time, sir." And he laughed so hard. He started laughing. He says, "I'll be right back." And he walks back in with the HR girl and he goes, "Hire that guy." I walked in, sat down, began to study, and I quickly became the #1 ADT salesman in unit sales in the whole United States. So for 6 years straight, I was #1, 2, or 3. I went on into sales training, then became a manager for ADT Security, then a national trainer of sales, eventually owning my own alarm company for ADT, a franchise or a dealership. And that was here in Jacksonville, Florida, where I live. And then, of course, I went on to other companies that some of you have heard, like Guardian Protection out of Pittsburgh, Briggs Home Security out of Dallas. And I've worked either as a consultant or an employee and have helped currently over 100 companies grow their business.
Fantastic. So you've got this great background in sales. So that's obviously when you're working with, as a business coach, working with your clients, is that where you're, the thing that you really specialize? Is that what you really work on the most as the sales part of it?
Yeah, great question. Yes, I focus primarily, on the marketing, the sales. I've expanded my responsibilities over the years as I've been employed at a few different companies along my path. And of course, one of them was company Dynamark, where I was the senior VP of business development and the chief revenue officer for that company, and oversaw all of the revenue. But my love, like you and I were talking earlier, how you love just getting to meet new people. My love was helping people become more successful. I tracked it for about 8 years and found out that over 92% of the time that our company and my team over the years have grown at least $250,000 or more in revenue. In some cases, like Guardian Protection, we grew in market valuation over $100 million. So wow. It's as little as $250,000, as big as $100 million. It just depends on the company.
What is when you're getting involved with sales and you're working with your clients? What is your process? I mean, what does that look like?
That's a great question. Really great question, actually, because I'm actually in the process of in that building right now for a company, which we can talk about in a moment. But I typically, when I sit down with a client, with a company, and I first, of course, ask this question, well, where are we at right now? And if they're willing and able to open up the books and be transparent and show me where they stand financially, from a revenue standpoint. Now, if they want to go all the way and they want to show me the full P&L, I can take a look at that and what their EBITDA is. You know that, of course. Then I'll be able to get a better picture. The more open they are, the clearer the picture. I'll be able to understand their units, the revenue, that kind of thing. My second question is, where do you want to be? What is your 5-year goal? Or if it's a 3 or a 1, it depends on the situation. They'll then say, where do you want to be? And of course, that typically the answer is either in unit sales and revenue or combination. Once I know where they're at and once I know where they want to be, then I sit down and I begin to to craft a plan of how we're going to get there. And I use what's called, I use the 2-action plan of stages and steps. Stages are production and steps are activity. And once I put those together, if we stay on the course and we under promise and over deliver, like I said, 92% of the time, we're gonna go beyond even our targets.
Okay. So the clients that you're working with right now, you mentioned a few of the people that you've worked with over the years and everything. Are you still working in that specific arena where you're more of the security and that type of thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we actually have gone beyond that. What happened in 2020, I was working with a fantastic company, Dynamark. And, I started with them in 2014. They were a local, I would say a 6-state region, Neal. And we had a strategy to take it coast to coast. That's sort of my expertise. So I sat down, built the plan as I just described. And over the course of 6 years, we went from 6 states to 42 states. So we went pretty far across the country, Florida, New York, California, Washington, all across the U.S. Due to the COVID issues, due to a lot of financing changes that happened in our marketplace, I ended up catching out there. Had an opportunity to go and take a break for a while and work on consulting. And I got back to what I love to do, which is helping companies grow. So I worked for the last 3 years, I've been working in industries like home warranty. You would know it as like gas line, sewer line, water line, or inside home HVAC, helping companies like that. I've worked with companies like call centers, developing marketing and call centers, companies that have call centers in Pakistan and Colombia and all over the world. And then recently, and you'll love this story in a minute, but recently I joined a solar company. It's probably about a 5-state solar company who has a vision to go coast to coast nationwide. And so we're now in the development stages of putting that together, which will launch August 1st, 2024. Name of the company is Palmetto Direct, and they are out of Charleston, South Carolina. But I'm excited about that.
So in working with the solar, you said Palmetto Direct, working with them. So what is your process in terms of getting them from where they are one state? I mean, what is the process to get them across the country, across the world potentially?
Yeah, that's a great question. In my experience, which I specialize in working in dealer programs, let me describe that in a little more detail for the audience. So I'll give you an example of one that everyone probably well knows. It's like ADT Security. So ADT Security, one of the biggest alarm companies in America. They grow 2 ways. They grow through selling through a corporate sales model, and then they grow through like a franchise model. And while it's not a franchise, it's called an authorized dealer, very similar. What we do in the solar business is Palmetto Direct will go out and we sell it 2 ways. One, corporately with our branches, and then we sell it through an authorized dealer network. So what we will go out and search for and build off of are the thousands of individuals and companies that are either in the industry and want to join a good partner who will help them get funded for their financing, help them with the installation, help them with the processing. And that's what Palmetto Direct does. And so it might be a company like ABC Solar. ABC Solar might be a company of 1, 2, 3 guys working as a small or a one-man show. They'll come under our wing and we will help them become more successful. They can stay independent. They're, still a 1099, but with our partnership, we help them become more successful. Well, that's what I did at ADT. I actually owned an ADT dealership, and that's what I did there. And as we grow this network, our current plan, we went from the ground floor. We started pre-planned starting in November 1st. We've already pre-signed 8 dealers, and by the end of 5 years, we'll be at 200 dealers across America.
Nice. Fantastic. Congratulations on that. So that makes a lot of sense. So if you're like a dealer, you're an independent dealer someplace,
Mhm.
you may have, some success in a specific market. You may have, good products, good installers, good management, that
Mhm.
whole nine
Mhm.
yards. But what might be missing is that name,
That name.
that
That's right.
brand
Yep.
name,
That
and
brand.
what might be missing is all the support that goes along with it, like a franchisee or like an
You
authorized
know,
dealer. So that's the stuff
you
that you
nailed it.
guys are providing.
Now you nailed it, Neil. That's exactly right. And we do a lot of that back end support work. That without it, a one man show or a 3-man show, or even a company as big as 100 people may need the revenue financing. They may need the support system. It takes money to make money. So we can provide a lot of those resources and capital that they don't normally have. And then we just continue to grow this brand through this web or this network across America, and at the same time, they get to build their local community brand. So it's a win for everyone.
That's awesome. So that's a model that really can be replicated by in pretty much any industry, I would imagine. I mean,
Almost any industry.
yeah. I mean,
Huh.
have you thought about like maybe other industries that could potentially utilize that type of thing?
Well, it's interesting you asked that question. I've been doing that now for about 3 years, and I wanted to find a home. And I'll tell you the story I wanted to share with you earlier. At 8 years old, 1973, don't mind, everybody can do the math and figure out how old I am. I was invited to a field trip to see the very first solar home in the world. It was in a little college called the University of Delaware. If you know anything about football, that would be the Mighty Blue Hens. Really
Yeah.
scary, huh? A blue hen, fighting blue hen. But the Blue Hens in Newark, Delaware, built their first solar house. You can look it up on Wikipedia. And I had the opportunity to visit it in 1973. In my little 8-year-old mind, I said, oh my God, in 5 more years, the world's going to be solar friendly and it's going to change the world. Well, here we are. It's 2023, and solar is now finally becoming commonplace on homes
Mhm.
across America. But it's taken between the utilities, municipality laws, having America become greener and friendlier to that, it's taken a while to accept it. But we're finally here, and I'm focused now, Neil, on the next 5 years, really helping this company to go nationwide. While at the same time, I've been working on developing and helping companies in other ways, whether it's
And
their leadership or mentoring.
fantastic. So, yeah, you've been a mentor
Hmm.
and a leader, a coach for quite some time now. You've been a youth leader at church. I mean, just all kinds of experience that you've brought to not only the marketplace but just to people in general. And you have actually started sharing that, or you've been sharing that for a while through your public speaking, and also you've written a couple books. You want to tell us about those?
I'd love to. Yeah, appreciate that. It's all started when I think I don't know that I've even shared this story, but when I was dating Isa, my wife, the other half of HAXAKAIN, I would write her little poems, and I would always sit down as I wrote these poems. I always thought, wow, this doesn't seem to be it's coming from me. It's just something in my heart. Of course, I'm writing it down. I'm thinking about it. I'm like, this isn't too bad. Well, when I was 6 months before entering the U.S. Navy in 1984, I decided to take a creative writing class, and I got an abysmal C plus, C minus, something like that. But I still loved writing, and I knew one day I would do it. Well, year after year passed, and it finally came to after leaving the company Dynamark. I had some time to really ponder what I was going to do next, and I said, you know what, I'm going to write a book. So I wrote a memoir that's it's titled "The Manhood Frequency." The Manhood Frequency is about some of my own life's adventures and challenges, what I went through, some of the challenges my wife and I went through, and how certain principles and through development of my core self and living my life and changing my frequency, I was able to really change the course of my life. And that book, Neil, has been a real blessing to a lot of people, mostly men and married couples. And we've actually helped couples from as far as Australia, New Zealand, Canada, all over the world. My wife and I, we wrote that together, by the way.
Outstanding.
That's been a great book, and it's actually saved a number of marriages. The second book I can show you here. This is the one that just came out October the 1st, and it's called The One Day Gift. I don't know if you're getting that glare. There
Perfect.
you
You can
go.
see it perfectly. Absolutely.
Perfectly there. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's a great little story. And I think I want to just point out if people can see that it
Yeah.
says enjoy, and if I'm saying it backwards, we'll get that corrected, but enjoy the adventure, finding treasure in your present. And I'll never forget, one day I was sitting there and I said, I'm 57 years old or 56 at the time. And I said, I wonder how many days I've lived on this earth. So, Neal, I took my phone out, got it to Google search, and pressed the button and said, how many days since September 23rd, 1965? And it calculated. And she said in her lovely voice, you are old. No, she didn't say that. She said 20 something thousand days, right? Well, then I got out my calculator and I asked her the question. I said, what is the average lifespan on the world? And of course, as you know, and we all know, it's between 75 and 85 years. So let's call it 80 years, right? 80 years. 80 years is the lifespan of a human being. And so that's 29,220 days. That's a number. You can't change it. That's 29,220 days. When I subtracted my life from that one, it was less in the time than about 8,000 days and 8,500 days. And I went, wow.
Yeah.
I said, wow, life. And here's the thing, Neal. But I said to myself, okay, I may have 8,000 days and I may have more than that, but I may have one more because I don't know. And so I thought about it. Wow, every day really is a gift. So when I thought about this, I thought, the day that we have given to us each day is truly a gift. You can't go back in the past because those days have died, and you can't go ahead into the future yet because they haven't been born. So what we need to do is focus on the day that's in front of us. And so as I understood that, I realized, wait a minute, we don't need to see that as a negative. We need to see this one day gift as a positive. It's an adventure, and we need to learn to enjoy the adventure, finding the treasure that's in the present, not in the past, not in the future. It's in the present. And that's why I put the gift, because it's a present of a gift. You got it?
Nice.
Play on words, but it's the present. And it's the gift of the beauty of it. And it's actually been read. It just got launched October 1. I thank the opportunity to be able to share that. I think it's going to transform people's lives. It's literally transformed my own. And from that, I've had opportunities to just meet people, encourage them, or whatever I've done, because that book has actually inspired me. So I'm excited that it's going to get out in the hands of hopefully more and more people.
Fantastic. Well, congratulations on that. So if we'd like to get our hands on that book, how would we go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Walmart. They're at all the places. There's a number of ways you can buy it. If you like to read it on Kindle, you can do that on Amazon. If you like to buy it as a book form or hard copy or soft, you can buy that on a number of outlets like Barnes & Noble and Walmart and Amazon, online, of course. And then if you want to take it a step further and you'd like to hear the old man narrator right here, Hank Groff, narrate the book, then all you have to do is go to Amazon or one of these other outlets and just search the book, The One Day Gift by Hank Groff, and it'll give you a lot of choices. And that'll be me reading the book. So if you're out working out, driving down the road, and you still want to listen, you don't have to see this old man's face for an hours on end. You just buy the audio book, and you can enjoy the journey.
I love that. You keep calling yourself an old man. I got shoes over in there. Are you kidding me? All right. So, hey, we're coming to the end of our time together here. Hank, any final words you want to leave our audience with?
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. First of all, I would just say, remember everyone out there that every day is a gift, and the gift giver has blessed you, and the gift giver, he loves you, and he wants you to live your life as an adventure. I'm here if you ever would like to speak with me. I share stories and anecdotes and positive information with others under hankgroff.com. You can check me out there. Please be patient and forgiving with me as the site is being changed from HAXAKAIN.com to hankgroff.com. I'll always be available. Would you like to chat? And we're out there to help others become the best they can be.
Outstanding. Hank, thank you so much for being on our show today. I certainly appreciate you being here. And folks, that's all we have for you today. That's our show. So thrilled you could be with us. Business Breakthroughs is sponsored by Titan Media Works. Check us out at titanmediaworks.com. That's works spelled WORX. And also check out all of our other great hosts at the Small Business Delivered Network at smallbusinessdelivered.com. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy. Take care. Bye-bye.